My Love of Life Energy is a podcast created by Anna Scott. Anna knows that every human being sees life uniquely. In this podcast, she will talk to people and learn from them. These conversations are to shine the brilliance of each human being she speaks to. Join her. After each exploration, you will expand on your insights and see truth and beauty.
Good morning, good afternoon. This is Anna Scott, and welcome to my podcast, My Love of Life Energy. And today, I really, I'm walking on a fine line. I've met somebody who, her name is Tatyana Sussex, and welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you. We've spoken once, and I don't know a lot. But the little I know is when I looked at her website, I had envy. There was such clarity and power in what you write and how you speak and how you showed up in the world. And I thought, whoever you are, I really wanted to know you. And then I wanted to copy your website. It's so good.
That's so nice to hear, because of course the reality is always different, right? Like I get in there, no, I have to change this and I have to change that and I need a new format. And so it's always fun to hear. Copy away.
Well, I don't know the words, but the format. But anyway, so welcome. So I was introduced to you by a mutual acquaintance of ours, Stephanie, who I did a podcast with, and she said, "Oh, you need to meet Tatyana." And you're in the three principal worlds, but you're also a creative writer, and you're up to helping people fall in love with the work where they are. So,
yeah. Most of my professional life, a lot of it has been as a writer, editor, writing mentor, teacher, coach. And then around what do we call it? Not the Great Resignation, the Great Recession. In 2007 or 8, I got my coach training certificate. And I just liked the idea of what I loved about being a writing coach, or actually just even an editor at a magazine. Or when I worked at tech companies, I often was getting people to write because we needed writers who weren't writers. And I just loved pulling out of people what they didn't know was there. Watching that surprise of like, whoa, I didn't know I could do that. And I like dispelling people's ideas and myths in themselves. Oh, I can't write, or I'm not creative. How do you know? I mean, how could you not be creative? You're human. Like taking a breath is creative, right? You're creating life. And so I don't know, you have those moments where it's life's worth living, like this is it. And they always seemed around the time of these moments of like people seeing what they could do. And so the coaching just came from, it would be fun to be able to take this outside of just writing. And, I lost my job in the Great Recession. And that's always a great time to go back to school and learn something new. So I feel like what I have put into my coaching is the writing and the creative, bringing out of people what they don't know is there. And then a lot of what I've learned just over time in life. And the wonderful thing about being a coach is you do enter this world of sort of new forms of study, right? And then other colleagues sending you on these cool explorations of philosophy or spirituality or learnings, understanding the human condition. And so I came across the three principles, and then from there, some non-duality, which is all connected. And I'm trying to remember where we started, but anyway, it's all just, it's fun bringing the creative in writing, the coaching, and then I also have a very active sort of athletic life. And so bringing that in there too.
How do you bring that in? That's so interesting.
Well, I find that there's a lot that I understand about my human experience that I sometimes experience more clearly and undiluted with thought in my physical world. Like I can see, for example, I swim, and I'm going to call myself a serious swimmer, which sounds unfun because it is fun, but I swim with the master's group. And so my swimming is one where I'm sort of often pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. And there are often times when, I mean, like in any physical sport where you push yourself, like I run also, but I'm often not pushing myself past the comfort zone. But where I often like, I have thoughts that I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or sometimes I'm driving to swimming. Another thing that's hard about swimming is that it can be very early in the morning. And so I get to experience what it's like to have a lot of thought, especially around not wanting to do or not being able to do. And then seeing how untrue those thoughts are because I'm doing it anyway. And I think that's sort of exciting about human nature, right? Like we wake up in the morning, I don't want to go to work and I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And yet we do it anyway. So we're always both disproving the untruth and proving what is more real, right? Like our energy is at work despite what we think of, what we're thinking of. So
It's so true. I could see that, like getting it cold in the morning, like I don't want to get in the pool. I don't want to get in the pool. And then you're in the pool.
oh, and then it's great. Boom. And I mean, I've been swimming for almost 20 years. I'm still sometimes on my way to swimming and thinking, like I'm almost at the pool and thinking, I'm going to go home. And that habit of thought, you'd think by now it would have gone away. It's crazy, but it still delivers the same surprise.
It's funny. I got a black belt in Aikido. And for 13 years, I went up to the dojo and I would bring my children, my babies, when they're, they started my daughter started with me when I was 2 months or 3 months. And I had that same thing. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'd find myself there.
Yeah. It's, and I'll add something else to the athletic story is with COVID, during COVID, our swimming stopped for a while and then it started up the September after the first March. And so just because we could only have a few people in the pool and all the COVID restrictions, instead of normally we hire and pay for a coach, but because we couldn't fill the pool with as many swimmers, we took turns coaching. The swimmers did, swimmers who wanted to. And I had always thought, I don't know how to write a workout. No, I don't. I know what makes a good workout when I swim it, but I just don't understand how to write one. And I just decided like that, well, I'm going to coach and I'm going to learn how to do this.
Oh, wow.
So it was really fun. And so that has been something new. And in the beginning, I sometimes I used to write a lot of poetry. It's like writing poetry. And it's sort of fun to, I made a decision to learn and I'm doing it. But also so once I got past I'd be up at night, writing workouts. My husband, who's also a swimmer, would laugh because he just shows up and sees who's swimming and gets a sense of what they like and just like writes a workout. And I could do that like if I walked into a group and we were doing writing exercises or talking about writing. But I didn't feel like I can do it in swimming. It's changed. It hasn't been like I'm up for hours writing it, which I also enjoyed, looking at patterns. But now I find that when I go, I have fun. Like I've turned it into in my own way, like a bit of a coaching experience too, like a swimming coaching and a human coaching experience. For example, as swimmers, we're often thinking about like having our stroke, our technique, like what do I need to do to preserve my shoulder, to swim faster, to look beautiful? And so it's often about like my stroke looks like this. How can I be more beautiful, my fast, my better stroke? And so one day I said, now I want you to swim this section beautifully. Now don't think of the beauty as coming from you, but think of the inherent beauty of the stroke. Like the freestyle stroke was already a beautiful stroke, and you're just going to swim into it. It's waiting for you. So I've had fun with things like that, but also I have fun pushing the group in a way where they get out. They have a little exhilaration about what they've done. So I usually coach on Monday. So it's the first day of the week. You want to pace yourself. You don't want to leave it all in the pool on Monday. But also, if people haven't been swimming over the weekend, it's a little waking up, right? Like, what's the perfect ingredient? You want to turn on the shoulders and turn on the legs and say hello to the strokes and get in there and get your groove, and just have something in there. Or even if there's a resistance, they do it and there's a sense of, oh, and I'll say, all day long, you can look back at the swim and say, oh, look what I did. And that I'm having fun bringing into coaching a little bit more.
It seems to me like you're just, I could feel it. It's like you can feel people's limiting, and you're letting them fall beyond it.
I love your wording. One could say pushing, another way is saying letting people fall beyond it. That's beautiful.
But that's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It is to see that there's this, it feels like what I felt is that there's like this fence and there's this beautiful pasture beyond it that they get to fall into. Mm-hmm. Once they move past it. Like I love feeling the stroke, like this beautiful stroke that they get to fall in through. Mm-hmm. Like they get to fill it out.
Yeah.
In their bodies.
Fill it out.
God, that just feels so good. Makes me want to go back and swim under you.
Yeah, it's been a fun surprise.
It seems to me, I'm so curious about the writing and the swimming and how they're the same. What you're doing with people.
Let me think about that. Writing and swimming. Well, in some ways, I'm going to make a generalization here because there are plenty of people who swim on their own. But it's to challenge yourself as a swimmer. It takes an extraordinary person to do it on his or her or their own. So to be in a group, to be with someone else, sometimes I don't swim with the master's group. I have some other friends I'll swim with. If I swim on my own, which is very rare, I barely get my heart rate up. And that's okay too. That's a different experience. But I find that in swimming with other people helps me become the type of swimmer I would not be on my own. And actually now what I'm doing is I'm comparing it more to coaching. And I do a lot of writing coaching. And I think coaching is the same thing. Being, whether it's with an individual or in a group, I find, I could only really speak for myself, that experience helps me do things, achieve things that I wouldn't otherwise on my own. And there's just something about having someone in your corner. And I feel that with writing. I coach people in these areas, and I also am coached. It's and I have writing. I've had writing groups. It's more fun. And it just seems there's more flourishing and more generative activity happening in community or with someone else.
Well, it's really funny. What I just felt, Tatyana, was that that thing about falling beyond your thinking. Like when I'm by myself, unless I'm really skilled, like I really can see it, I'm so used to just my walls of thought. They seem so normal to me. But what you seem to be offering people is the gates that go beyond it.
Mm. Yeah.
And what a gift, because there was something when you said it so took me, you said breathing is creative. Like it just seems so normal to you to see creativity. Like it's like this mundane, miraculous thing all at the same time. And you seem to see it in everybody.
Well, what a shame that people would think that they weren't creative. That, and I understand that, people are differently creative, and we hold it up, creativities and musicians and artists and sculptors and painters. And yet, what if everyone saw themselves as creative? Who's to say that, why isn't being an accountant creative? It is being creative, right? You can be as basic as saying someone's creating an Excel sheet. I don't really know what accountants work in, and I'm probably dating myself with software, but you're using your mind and you are creating something. We're always creating something.
I just want to offer you what you're seeing is freeing.
Tell me more. Tell us more.
Well, what I'm feeling from you is that seeing that, it's like I soften, it's like the parameters of my life, my field got bigger, so much bigger than I have any idea. I mean, that's what I think you're seeing. That's what I've made up that you see.
Yeah.
That it's so much bigger than we have any idea.
So I'll tell you a little swimming and writing story. Many years ago, one group I swam with, what was that? We were all reading a book together, and someone asked me what I thought about it. And anyway, and there were two men in their 50s, and they read a lot of science fiction. And one of them said, "Oh, I can't write," which I love hearing. I love it when people say they can't write. Because first off, they literally can write. You can write. You can hold a pen, and you probably send emails half your day. And then I found out why one person thought he couldn't write. Because a teacher, when he was a little boy, told him he couldn't write because he was a bad speller. Another one might have been as ludicrous as bad penmanship. But anyway, so these two men in their 50s agreed. They said, "Yeah, I can't spell." I'm like, "Who cares?" I said, I'm not a good speller." "What? But you're a writer." I'm like, "I'm a writer. I'm not a speller." Like,
oh, wow.
Whoever says that they're connected. And you just saw them go, "What?" And so then the next week, we all went on a bike ride. We swam, we did, it was like sports camp. We were going on a bike ride, and I brought the very beginning of a science, like I'd written the science fiction short story, and I brought the first few lines. And I don't know what I was up to, but I was doing a lot of writing workshops then. And so we went off to do our bike ride in two different cars. And I didn't know that the one car with the men, the 50-year-olds who didn't think they were good writers, they kept reading. It was just like a little paragraph about an underwater train to Australia. And when we arrived at the biking place, it had landed in them, and they were talking about it. So from that, I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. Every Wednesday after swimming, we're going to go to Starbucks and we're going to write. And one of the men said, oh, I'm sort of scared. I said, yeah, I get it. It is like, there is a little fear of not knowing where you're going to go, but don't worry. You just bring your notebooks and your pens. I'm going to give you everything you need to write. And all you have to do is this. That's all you have to do.
My God. So for people who, because we won't see the video, you just said all you have to do is move your hand.
Yes, move your pen over your paper. This is about 15 years ago. So maybe when we all weren't going around with laptops or tablets. And so I did, I might have gotten about 10 people, and we went over there and we started with this underwater train to Australia. And I'd bring things like little prompts or pictures and get people started and say, just keep going, just keep going. And it was really fun. You know, one of the men gave his story to his wife for Christmas. And, you know, it was fun watching people delight and surprise themselves all the time. I haven't really thought about that story for a while, but there's a literal story of swimming and writing.
I knew there was a strong connection. It's the same thing. The question I have is, it feels like the soul is designed to write.
You know, maybe it's just designed to express, express its uniqueness in the wholeness. It's all of us, right? So maybe, you know, we look up in the sky and there's a constellation of stars and they're all doing their little twinkling. Because I think for someone, you know, sometimes I'm all for coaching someone who says, you know, I really want to write and I'm just not doing it. And I think coming to an answer that, you know what, I really don't want to write, is a great place to land. You know, sometimes there are these things we think we should do, and that there might be another way that a person wants to express themselves. It could be, you know, I really want to draw comics or illustrate, or I don't know, I got this idea a long time ago that I should be writing. Because, you know, people want to tell their story in some way. Like, I'm surprised years ago, I would meet people and they say, oh, I've always wanted to write. And I would think, maybe I was in grad school at the time. I got an MFA in creative writing. And my relationship with writing is really pleasurable. I love it. But there have been times, especially as a freelance writer, when at times it did feel hard. Just, you know, here I am, you know, writing on deadline and coming up with something. And even though as I talk about it now, I think that's so exciting. And, you know, for some people, it's just not their thing. And so when I would hear people, oh, I've wanted to write, I'd be like, why? If you're happy not doing it, why would you do it? But they're speaking to something else, right? I want to come alive through an idea that gets manifested into form. I just don't know what it is yet. And, you know, writing's an easy step, right? Because most of us write.
Well, you said something, and I felt the reverberation of the truth, is that souls want to express themselves. And it comes in so many different ways, but there's such a beauty in it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's through fashion or food or Excel spreadsheets, or it's an expression.
Yeah.
And a unique one.
Yeah. You know, I like people to consider, if they say I'm not a good writer, I just like them to consider that it's not true.
No.
I mean, they can write. It could be immaterial whether a good one or not, and who's to say?
Yeah. You know, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
It just seems what you're doing is taking the burdens and the shackles off people.
Yeah, I hope to.
And to free their soul just to express fully.
Yeah. I have a story I like of a friend who was telling me, God, I spent 25 minutes on an email. This is an email, I think, not a social email. It was a professional email, and it was probably, to a prospect, but it's like a business email, right? This could make or break. This could be enrolling a client. So she said, sometimes I get so mad at myself. I spent 25 minutes on an email. I said to her, that's all? And she said that changed everything for her. Because of the idea of like, why do we think an email is only worth 5 minutes when if it was an enrollment conversation and we had spent 2 hours, we probably wouldn't have blinked.
There's something you just said that I'm fascinated by. It's like you see something about our thinking or the limits of it. When you say, oh, is that all? There was something you see in that moment.
Well, I think what I saw was that 25 minutes was not a lot of time to spend on writing an email.
But there's something you see beyond that, before that. Like that falls into a bigger thing that you see.
Yeah, I don't know. I could answer, but I might be making stuff up at this point. I mean, we have an interesting relationship with time, right?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, something in there.
But, and I catch it in myself. And I'm aware of my ping-ponging between having not enough time and. Okay, let me give you an example. This cracks me up. It delights me in a way. It can be problematic, but people are like, can you believe how fast time's going? Where is time going? Oh, it's so fast. I can't believe how fast the month went. And I find that sometimes too, but I think, where does that come from? Like, time is moving the way it always moves. Are we like comparing it to some parallel imagined life of how time really should be moving? Like, where is it coming from, this, oh God, time's going so quickly? And I don't mean it like an insult, but I find it curious, especially when I'm in a conversation and I hear someone say, this year went so quickly. And I really want to say, well, how quickly or slowly did you want it to go? And how would you have known if it was going at the right pace?
It's interesting what I feel in you. And I don't know whether this resonates or not, is that the truth about our souls being eternal. Like there's something in the background. Like when we're eternal, what's time?
Well, I would like to be grounded in that. I certainly have, life and death has certainly been on my mind for most of my life. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's what a lovely statement to apply to me. It could be that I'm more exploring it than really. I mean, we have our wisdom, right? Our wisdom intelligence that perhaps does know all. So it could be that I'm still groping in the dark for it. But
if we understood that we're eternal, spending 25 minutes on anything for an email It's like, yeah, of course. Like, what's the big deal?
I used to feel that way about writing, especially since I wrote, I did a lot of, I used to work on websites, content for websites when the World Wide Web came into being, which is very exciting. I started that work in the mid-90s. So then it moved into like content strategy and marketing. And my last job, we actually, would set timers for the work we would do because it was a project management software company. And so I wasn't always aware, but I was aware of the fact that my work was being measured in time. And I was also aware that I was fudging and lying and not always measuring it. Almost like, don't put baby in a corner. Don't tie me down. Yo, no. But also because the ego, was embarrassed to be seen for how long it took me to do something. And so I was having my own, it took me 25 minutes to write this email. And also, when you're one of the few writers in a group, I know that in a company, rather than, we have a writing team and everyone has a sense of the writing process, the people expect things to be turned around, or that's how I saw it. And I'm going somewhere with this and I've lost my train of thought, which happens these days. And then I left my job and I got back into my creative writing world. And I went to a retreat and there was a woman there who just was big and beautiful and booming in her presence and how she spoke about writing. And she said, some days I spend 4 hours working on one paragraph. And God damn it, it's a beautiful paragraph. And so what she told me was, we can do it. Like she green lighted it. Like, oh.
Yeah.
And so now, there are times where I'll work on, it's taken away the judgment of, oh, I'm spending so much time on this. And it's even given me the, how great is it that I've given, let's say for my book manuscript, the opening paragraph is sort of a big deal, right? The opening page. And I went back to rework it. And just to know that at some point you have to sort of get off the dime, right? Because you'll never know. At some point it has to be sort of good enough. I have resolved this problem I have with my creative intelligence as much as I can for now, and I have to move on. But the idea of lavishing as much time and creative attention on something as it feels like it needs, now it feels satisfying to me rather than like embarrassing.
It feels luxurious to me. With that, we're at the end of our time.
Whoa.
Fastest 30 minutes ever.
Anna, where did the time go?
I know. But it was luxurious and I felt it.
It was.
Yeah. So, Tatyana, this will all be in the bio, et cetera, but if people want to delight in you, where can they find you?
My website is everydaycreative.net. And so you can access me through there. And I've also started a new Substack. Substack is an email. Mine is free. I know there are subscriptions. And it's Beauty Hunter. So look for Beauty Hunter on Substack. And I'm writing about beauty in daily life.
Beautiful. I have loved this conversation.
I have too, Anna. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on it.
Wonderful. Thank you.